Hi everybody, it's Annette from the Art of Intuition, and today we're going to talk about our dream space and seeing people in our dream space and what that means. I want to kind of get back to a dreaming video because I haven't done one in forever, and it is my most important. I don't know if I say most important. No, I guess nothing's more important than anything else, but it is the ones I enjoyed the most in the beginning because they're so fun. I love talking about dreams and what people dream and why they dream it, and it's just so much fun to really anchor in those states and really understand the power we have in those states. So this is kind of going to come because I saw or I listened to something today, and they were talking about how momentum stops when you are sleeping in your creation cycle. How when you're sleeping, you're not creating anything, your momentum stops. I thought that wasn't just a bizarre take on it, because my take is completely opposite on that. Like, to me, that is your most creative state. It is the state where you get the most done. It is the biggest state you can do. Your consciousness is so far beyond anything you can hold in the body in that moment. It's teeing up all those realities so you can then anchor them in. It's such an important state to have. Now, I do want to kind of go through a little clarity on the difference in human dreams and when you anchor in enough of your higher consciousness aspects to how it starts to change, because it will start to change. Now, when you're in your human aspect, you're still very plugged in when you're dreaming, okay? You just have not unlocked everything you can do there. You're just kind of scratching the surface. And a lot of people will say, wow, scratching the surface and having maybe a precognitive dream. You're dreaming the future. What you're going to deem as the future. Basically, you're dreaming a frequency your body's not at yet. That's why it's the future in a sense. It hasn't arrived here yet. But people do that in a human consciousness in a sense all the time. Now, technically, when you're dreaming, you're not in a human consciousness, because your human consciousness is more brain related, and your sleep state is more an energetic state where your consciousness expands out. Your higher mind consciousness does. It's just not online when you're awake yet. You haven't kind of bought it online fully. And that's why when we're in our human consciousness, people would say, and people in a human consciousness would say, okay, when you're dreaming, you're working out your issues, right? And that's something someone would say in their human consciousness. That's something they would write in a science journal, but that's what's going on when you're sleeping. And in a way, in that consciousness, that's true, because when you're in your human consciousness, when you're sleeping, you are seeing what's in your field, right? But you only have access to this much of your field. So all you can see is right here, whatever's going on right in front of your face. You don't have the access to your 360 access in a sense, and expanding out miles in a sense of how big your field is and everything going on in your field and all your other aspects in your field and what they're doing and all the other versions of you living out their existence. You can't see all that yet. It doesn't mean it's not in your field. You just can't see it yet because you don't have the access yet. We have to kind of gain the access. We have to raise our consciousness to be able to hit that aspects, those frequencies, so we can then see. So the minute you can see them, then you know you're close enough to be able to bring them in, because your waking state is going to be lower. Your frequency is lower in the waking state. But if you can see it, that means your consciousness is there. You just got to get your body to that consciousness in a sense. You have to embody in that consciousness to bring your body's frequency up to that consciousness frequency. So then that reality can kind of materialize around you. See, that's kind of the key. So I would not say, even in a human state, your momentum drops. You just don't have the access yet. You haven't unlocked the access to really be able to utilize that state, to where you're not just seeing things that are bothering you, because technically those things are playing out in other places. Those things are playing out in realities you can't see. They're still just as real. They're not your mind creating a situation for you to work through. Your brain doesn't do that. Your brain's not going to waste time with some, let's just make up a situation and play through that and to work out your issue. Your brain doesn't work that way. Your brain really doesn't do much. I mean, you're talking about your heart space, your higher mind consciousness, your energetic field. You're reading your field, your third eye. That's what's kind of doing all the work in those spaces. It's not it's not the brain. The brain keeps the body functioning. That's really what the brain does. It's not meant to noodle these types of discussions, you know. It just doesn't have the capacity to do that. It doesn't have it's not, when you're in your human consciousness, it's not wired like that yet. You have to kind of change the wiring of it in a sense. You have to let, you know, new neural pathways get forged in your brain. And that's what exposing your body to higher consciousness material, in whichever form you do that, connecting, whether you just started out and you want to channel, because channeling is connecting you to a higher state, however you're doing it. And there's so many different ways to do it. And then you have to embody in that aspect and clean out everything in your life that where you're not living that frequency, where you're not living that aspect. So when you're sleeping and you see all these amazing things, those things are happening in your field somewhere. Your body is just not at that frequency to experience them here. So don't get discouraged if you're not seeing anything. A lot of people say they don't dream. You know, I don't see anything. You're still seeing stuff, but you're not at a frequency to really remember it. You can't bring it in a sense. The frequency of your body's too low. Now, over time, that always is kind of is going to be ticking up. The cat's joining me today. You're always going to be trying to tick up on a lot of this stuff, and you're always going to be in that moment to tick up with your frequency. So think of your dreaming as a place where you're going to see the good, the bad, even though those are really polar words that we're going to use them here. You're going to see it all. And when you get to certain spaces, you're going to see a lot of distorted stuff and stuff that you can't even imagine. I remember one lady was talking about one of her dreams where she saw she was this terrible person, you know, and she was just, you know, lying to people and stealing people's money, and she was terrible in a sense, you know. And she was not even aware that she had that was going on, in a sense, in another space, in another time. An aspect of her was doing that. So we start talking about clearing our karma and kind of getting our abacus balancing our karmic scales, and we don't realize that, wow, look at that whole reality I'm living that I got to now balance too. That's why a lot of that stuff you'll kind of see it in your dream state, because you're also clearing in your dream state. You clear a lot of these distortions where you don't have to experience them. Look at how you feel in the morning. That's massive in the dream space. I've had a lot of dreams. I've woken up, I don't remember the dream, but I just felt really crappy, and I felt really upset, even if I couldn't specifically remember the dream. And I've had other dreams that I remember them, they were super distorted, but I don't have any feelings at all when I wake up. And that's how you kind of know you've cleared whatever you were trying to clear. You're clearing all these existences is what you're doing also. When you get to certain spaces in consciousness where you can access that part of the field, where you access that power, in a sense, to be able to clear all these existences without having to do anything in the waking state to clear them. You can clear them when you're sleeping. And you'll kind of know when you do. If you have a dream and you wake up and you're upset, you're not quite finished, you know. And sometimes I would wake up maybe at 2 or 3 in the morning and be super upset about a dream I had, and then go back to bed and wake up at 7 and I feel fine. Like I could finish the clearing after I went back to sleep for that second time. A lot of times we don't want to finish the clearing. A lot of people have what they would call nightmares, and they're just trying to clear some distortions that's in the field that could have the capacity to, because there's no closed systems, in a sense, it'll have the capacity to interfere with the field you're living right here. You have to clear it in a way in the physical waking state, which is what a lot of people were trying to avoid. We're trying to do as little in the physical waking state, in a sense, of this kind of stuff as we can, and do it all when we're sleeping. And there's a point where you can do more when you're sleeping. There's a point when you see all the new realities coming in, but some of these can take years to come online. But that's okay, because they're supposed to take years to come online. It takes a while for your body's template to rewrite. It takes a while for your body's frequency to reset, to end up in these realities. Anyone that's seen something like really create over time, and a piece comes in here and a piece comes in here, and you're like, I'm just never going to get here. We're going to be doing this forever. It's just because our human kind of is used to everything coming immediately. And that's how the brain wants to kind of work it through. Like, it's going to be here immediately. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm dreaming about the past. You never dream about the past. it has no reasoning. You're dreaming about a reality where something different played out. We will associate it with the past because it might be someone we don't talk to anymore. It might be someone that we haven't seen. It might be someone who's passed away in this reality. So we associate it with, oh, I was dreaming about this person who, whatever. It's happening somewhere. It's just not happening in this reality. So don't discount anything you dream because it's not happening here. You're clearing in that state. You are in no way not having forward. The only thing that blocks forward momentum when you're sleeping is when you're purely in your human consciousness and you're not expanding out at all, which is technically you can't be doing. You're always going to be expanding out when you sleep. I had a friend that used to say she could feel her the essence of her that was in her body. Like I said, we've already talked about the soul kind of being out of the body, but the part of her soul that was in the body would come out and do flips over her body. And anyone who's ever felt that feeling of being crushed back in the body is whatever part of your soul that is in the body, it gets kind of pushed back in there. And it's like a very jarring feeling when that happens, if something suddenly happens and you wake up. But she would say would do flips. And I think she told her doctor that. And she said he looked at me like I was kind of weird. And I'm like, well, it's because he's just not in a space to understand that, because they look at it in a human consciousness. And in a human consciousness, there are different rules. There are different ways they're going to understand it than in higher consciousness, where you can see how constrained you are by the body and how you can't see these things. Your body, and it's really in a way not that you can't see them. There'll be clues that certain things are coming. But when you're in a totally different brainwave state when you're awake, and you don't decode it, in a sense. Like you might dream about meeting a person, and you're like, wow, I'm going to meet this person. This person's going to play a big role in a reality I'm going to have, but I haven't met the person yet. So you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But maybe all around your waking state, you've seen this person pop up on your TV, or someone's mentioned this person, or whatever, or they wrote a book, and you walk by a bookstore, and if they even have bookstores anymore, and saw their picture, or you heard their name, or you had someone who had their name, but you're not really putting it together because in that state you're not seeing the clues that this person might be important later. You might see them just flash on the TV screen for 5 minutes, but 3 years later, you might meet them and they have an impact in your life. There's something you have to do. There's the reality you're going to have together, a timeline you share together. But you don't really pick up on the clues because your mind's too busy into other things. And a lot of times we don't believe those things are possible. We don't believe we can know that person, or we can't believe we have reality doing this job, or doing this kind of thing, or moving to this location. We don't believe that's even possible. So we kind of discount it in a sense, and we don't really think about it. But in your dream state, you don't have any of those blocks in the way. There's nothing blocking you saying that can't happen. Because in our human state, we'll be like, oh, that can't happen. Screw that. That can't happen. I don't know why I didn't even think about that. That can't happen. But when we're asleep, the brain is shut off in a sense. We don't have the human programming in the way telling us that can't happen. So we're able to see what could happen. It might not happen. It depends on how hard we work to bring in certain realities, or something similar to that reality and frequency wise. Because as soon as we see it, we might get up and go, oh, well, that was ridiculous. That can't happen. Because then we start to say that, when everything you see is the possibility to happen. You're teeing up that reality. It's not that far out, or you wouldn't be able to see it when you're sleeping. Now, not that far out could be 5 to 10 years. It could be however long it's going to take you to get your body to the vibration where that reality exists. Because your body has to land there, and then it's going to kind of form around it. It has to kind of plan in that new reality and let everything kind of form around it. So you'll be surprised what you weren't be able to see when you were awake, because once you do start to raise your consciousness, and then it even gets bigger, in your dream state, you're more conscious in every state. So all the times you saw that person, or that they had flashed across your screen, or however, and then all of a sudden you can see, like, yeah, I was kind of getting pointed in that direction, but I didn't even think it was possible. I didn't really even pay any attention. It was just background noise to me. But once I saw it in the dream, I was like, wait, is that possible? And now let me go back and see where were the clues in my waking state that I might be going there. Where was that clue? Where was all that stuff going that I couldn't see it? So just be aware of the power in that state and what you're able to do in that state. But the more you raise your consciousness, the more powerful you are going to be able to see, to clear millions and quadrillions of existences with like just a short nap, in a sense. You'll be able to see so much more. You'll be able to tap into things you never thought you'd be able to tap into, because energetically you can become so big when you are sleeping. You'll find your merging fields with the people next to you. If you sleep with people, and I don't mean it sexually, just beside people. The sex thing's a different topic. But if you sleep next to people, sometimes sleep by yourself, because your field can't clear, and you really can't do a lot of the work you're going to need to do by sleeping next to a person, because your fields are going to want to merge, and you can't clear and merge at the same time. So, and that's like an energetic merging of the fields when you're sleeping. So just kind of be aware of that also. That a lot of couples will say, they get and don't get offended if your partner wants to sleep in a different bed. It's not personal. None of this is personal. It's just what their body needs, because their field needs to clear, and they can't do that when they're sleeping next to, you can't do that when you're sleeping next to people. So, okay. Sweet dreams, and keep practicing the art of intuition.